it's fantastic that so many journalists have reached this place from places so far off as far off as Pomerania and other places, other distant places in this country. I'm really glad, in spite of the weather conditions, quite unfavorable ones, you've made it. It is very important for us to realize how big the challenge is. The NPP project, great costs, great expectations. I'm always trying to find out about the cost and expenses in the first place. The investment project is, so to speak, distributed or spread over the years, and there's a whole lot of safety issues. Especially the second part of this conference will be devoted to these particular aspects, criteria, phenomena, etc. As I said, this is going to be done in the second part. Our dear guests who have kindly accepted our invitation to take part, especially in the second part of this conference, are most welcome here. The decision to be taken officially by the government finally is expected to come, if not this month, by the end of this month, then in the earlier days of February, I should think. The green line for the project to be continued, for us to pass on to a more advanced stage, is the necessity, is the challenge of the time. Mrs. Trojanowska, I think it would be fantastic if you can lead us through the basics, make a kind of short introduction to the topic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome at this meeting of today. I should hope that this meeting will be held in a little bit of a different climate than several other like meetings held by this far. One of the nearest meetings of the Council of Ministers will be devoted. Precisely to these topics. We have managed so far to provide institutional and legal basis, foundations for the project to develop in view of implementing nuclear power in this country, design issues, exploitation, that is operation basically. Andrzeju, tragedia, nic nie słychać. Ja wymyślam. Zgłosiłeś? Dalej nic nie słychać.
Kolejna kwestia to działania edukacyjno-informacyjne. My rozpoczęliśmy już taki proces, mając absolutną...
Trainings have been just started. The condition for social acceptance being, basically enhancing social knowledge on the functioning and operation of nuclear objects. The budgetary situation has made our plans complex as regards carrying out, pursuing the campaign with greater sway, so to speak, or swing. Today we're focusing on nuclear-related programs within the Ministry of Economy, but other hubs, other institutes, R&D hubs, etc., are making their contribution. Same is true about the state atom agency. With the R&D infrastructure in place, we cooperate as a system of interconnected, interrelated hubs, and this project being absolutely new, novel, given the conditions of Polish economy, is really a challenge for one thing, but for the other, we are basically reaching the target with a target of 6,000 megawatts in future. We are referring to starting point. We are about to reach a target of 50 terawatt hour per year in terms of energy produced, or at least power capacity. So that's going to be quite a large market segment. Also, in the program, in our works that we are pursuing, we have commenced dealing sections with regards to spent fuel and management of wastage of wasted products, especially radiation waste. Definitely, international cooperation and collaboration has been key to achieve these targets. Without that, without our employees, our staff participating in international institutions, projects, programs, especially IEAE based or run programs, projects, or Paris-based international framework of cooperation, especially it's just like the U.S. Department of Energy, safe transportation of spent fuel from the research and development reactors from the territory of Poland, and many other like experiences have made us very much very well settled within the structures, international structures already as regards research and development taking place. We have hosted very important missions from the International Nuclear Agency, Nuclear Energy Agency, focusing on the legal and organizational, structural, infrastructural aspects for the nuclear in Poland, with a special focus on safety. Both recent missions have proved successful at their appropriate stages, of course, the stage that we are into, so to speak. With regards to the Polish program, its outline was first prepared, compiled back in 2011, but at that point in time, the environmental impact assessment was necessary, was the prerequisite, and therefore, it needed lots of consultation, quite time-consuming business, etc., and therefore it couldn't possibly have been proposed, submitted to the Council of Ministers as we want to do it these days. In May 2013, the protocol with the involved interested countries. 10 countries have involved. The Baltics have quit the project, but Denmark and Austria, for instance, have submitted their interest. Letters of intent and whatnot, and well, that has made the process rather time-consuming. But still, the Polish program for nuclear, as it is to be submitted to the Council of Ministers, is a roadmap, kind of how to efficiently, effectively introduce the nuclear power in Poland, with the contribution of a variety of stakeholders, nuclear facilities, construction issues, whatnot. This roadmap basically maps the targets, sub-targets, all contributing to achievement of the general target. The framework for the investors labours, which is part of it, is not a set of detailed instructions yet. Neither is it a decision on actually activating, starting the operation of an NPP. But we would very much like to get to that point someday. Well, within a couple of years, the investor should finally become capable of applying for constructing or having the NPP constructed based. That's a very basic thing, and only upon such a decision, the foundation of such a decision, once accepted and approved, an NPP, the first one to Poland, will be able to be constructed, can be constructed basically. That's a homework that we still are expecting to be done by all the stakeholders, all those parties interested. The necessity for the program to exist, to be announced, etc., is based on so-called statutory delegation, which is there in place and in force. Therefore, we have to be to fit it within the framework, temporal framework, as well, for the Council of Ministers to receive the program, including its time horizon, including the economic premises and justifications for such a project development of it, as well as trans-border conditions, any and all relevant related factors and drivers, like taking into account the outcome of studies, research, development, especially the recent challenges like the Fukushima occurrence, etc. Therefore, there is much now to be complemented with regards to the first draft of the program, which was issued, as I said, back in the 2011. This is as a kind of introduction. Thank you very much, Minister. Just a brief question at the very beginning. By the end of 2016, the location and the contract is to be signed for construction. How about this time frame being realistic in your view? Well, I should think that this time frame is going to be long enough for us, for all the interested parties, stakeholders, etc., to be finally capable of choosing one of the locations. This is also important for the investor that is waiting to get the green light, to see the green light in order to implement such a project. This is quite an ambitious and quite a challenging thing, yes, this time frame, but I think that in cooperation with the investor, we will be capable to do so.
Thank you very much. Now, I believe we should stay for a moment on this investment process and take advantage of the presence of Vice President of PGE, Mrs. Piszczak. I would like to ask you, what is your evaluation of the status of preparation for the program? What have you done up to now? And secondly, in your opinion, The fact that this program of nuclear power has not been so far confirmed by the government, also it has been on the cards for a few months. Does it make difficulties for you now dealing with the timetable? I mentioned just this date of 2016, then 2019, the issue of permits. Is it real? Thank you very much. I should like to answer one by one to the answers to the questions of Mrs. Wakoma. Of course, for 3 years we have been intensively worked on this program, and we want to keep the timetable. I should like to recall a few important milestones which confirm our readiness and ability to continue the work and keep up the timetable which was mentioned by Mrs. Trojanowska. I agree that it is very ambitious, but it is feasible. This 2016 as the date of finalizing the integrated bidding and then starting the work in 2025, I believe is possible. Of the most important aspects concerning the investment process itself, I should like to recall that we have signed the contract with Worley Parsons, which will deal with all studies concerning the site. We have successfully finished the first stage in September 2013. It was the stage of preparing plans of work for each region. Now we have started the work on the spot, on the site. This is the work which will be continued for 12 months, and the siting studies which will indicate which of the two sites, Choczewo and Żarnowiec, is good, and if there are any reasons to exclude any of them. More exact studies will continue, and they will take 2 years. This is the question of the timetable, and I believe we shall try to keep it. The second important aspect, and here I should like to make my position clear concerning the acceptance by government, by PPG, of our program. Of course, we were ready in May 2013 to start bidding for the contract engineer. Then we shifted the time for this a few times under the influence of the lack of decision of the government, and we had to shift this date. Let us say clearly, we have already covered some costs which are significant. So both the investor, which is PGSA, and the other investors which want to work with us, large Polish concerns, we all need this decision of the government and confirmation that this direction of development of our power industry will be kept. However, in order to be more or less comfortable in time, we have finally appointed the time of submitting offers for 17th of February, and if our program is really adopted, then we shall successfully conduct the bidding. Of course, it is very important, and it is a milestone for the next points in our timetable. Of the most important stages, which will influence the whole work, is the question of bidding, of opening the integrated bidding. Our company believes that we are unable to conduct this process without the contract engineer, technical advisor. So we shall be waiting for the final decision in this bidding, because this technical advisor will help us to prepare all documents to get the necessary permits, assure the quality of the process, assure the safety of the project, and generally high-class management. So here our company is waiting for the moment when the government finally says yes, that this political will be confirmed by official decision. of the other important things, I should like to draw your attention to the fact that the success of our work in the north of the country will also be related to the work which we do on propagation of information about nuclear power plants. We have tried hard to impart this knowledge to the people who live there and to impart them the information which is necessary for them to take reasonable decisions, informed decisions. We have opened 2 information points in each of the proposed sites, and also in some other places. There are people who have really large knowledge of nuclear power. The materials are available, and people who are interested can get all information they need. So we want to participate in the life of these gminas, and we want to cooperate with the local communities. This is necessary to build something which is called public acceptance of the project. So this is in the general view. Since you mentioned the cooperation with the other Polish companies which are also interested in the project, please tell us, since we know that the first project will cost up to 50 billion zlotys. These are the calculations from 3 years ago. Presently, we know we do not speak about it. Maybe we can base on the companies which realize such investments in the other countries. So, keeping to this previous evaluation of 50 billion, can we really say that these are the money? This is the money which we can get in the market, or have it provided by the companies which will be involved in the project? This amount of 50 billion seems to be enormous, even for a very large project. Well, I must say that this problem of financing such a huge enterprise is very important and is raised on every meeting. Of course, getting such an amount of money is a difficult challenge. However, one of the important limitations for us, we shall take this into account in the integrated bidding. And we have foreseen the role for the strategic partner, who will not only provide technology, but also participate in the financing side by side with our PGE company. So we address this question to the financial market, and of course the proposals will be also evaluated in the bidding. We shall try to get this support from the outside partners, foreign partners, who will be providing not only know-how, technology, but also with its own capital finance. This will make it possible for us to get the leverage, which will make it possible to think positively about the financial structure of the project. I shall also mention that each of the countries where the technology is created is an instrument which is export credit agency. So we expect that each of the partners will bring also an offer from the credit export agency. We do not imagine that this would be possible to realize our project without such a support. Usually such financial support can be obtained for long periods of time and on competitive conditions. We shall, of course, appreciate this very much, and we shall try to get positive contributions from all our bidders. Besides that, we shall take commercial credit, so we have some idea. In general, I would say that there are many projects in the world which are even now much larger than ours, and they get financing. So I think we shall also be able to do it, to manage this project reasonably and obtain reasonable conditions. Of course, this is our task. Well, I hope that we shall all know soon whether your optimism is justified or not. Well, I think that within the next 2 years we shall have clarity in this respect. As I mentioned, our conference is directed mostly at safety problems. I think the first element of this is the legislation, and here the role of the State Agency of Atomic Power is very important. But I believe that it is also very important to have these siting studies, which are also a determinant of where our nuclear power plant can be built. Why do I speak about it? Well, because the information which you get that, for example, due to the icing of communication lines, several thousand of households in Poland is without electrical energy, is one of the signals that Poland has its own specific characteristics. And conducting siting studies, we shall have to take into account this element besides the long list of other aspects which have already been taken into account. And here I would like to ask for the commentary both our ladies. Mrs. Stojanowska, do you think that our siting studies can take into account our Polish characteristics? After all, it is not in every country that I think is so catastrophic. If this were to happen, and if the lines from the nuclear power plant to the transmission network were iced, what would we do? Mrs. Stojanowska, please. Well, siting studies are conducted, of course, based on high requirement standards. They take into account both the requirements of the atomic law and, of course, local conditions. And we have it written in the Act. They must take into account the expected extreme climatic conditions. So we take into account very hard weather conditions, and both seismicity and maximum and minimum temperatures will be taken into account. For a nuclear power plant, this extent of requirements is much more important than in the case of normal power lines. So I think in this case, of course, it is already written down, but such cases as happen now make it quite clear that we must rigorously follow these requirements. Well, I mentioned this because after Fukushima, everybody was thinking about seismic problems, but in Poland, our normal Polish winter can be also a problem. We have here the representative of the National Center for Nuclear Research, Mr. Tomasz Jackowski. Mr. Jackowski, how do you see the possibilities of preparing this element, that is exact checking the Polish specific climatic conditions for nuclear power plants? Thank you very much for being invited here. I would like first of all to stress that after Fukushima, great attention is given by all international and European organizations, not only to seismicity, but to all external problems. And from this standpoint, we have made studies of all nuclear stations in Europe. And from this standpoint, we make siting analysis. For new nuclear power plants, it is difficult for me to say what is the flow of work being done by Worley Parsons, but this work is certainly conducted in such a way that all external impacts, extreme conditions must be taken into account and are being taken into account. Of course, all accidents up to now have taken place because somebody has overlooked something. And this is the subject which we discuss always in the International Atomic Energy Agency, in International Energy Agency, in OECD, how to take into account all possible events, how to foresee them. And there are methods to do this. Presently, we try to do it by means of analysis of extreme conditions which have never happened before, but we take them into account and more severe than usually occurring.
Thank you very much, Tomasz. Once we are into safety, we would kindly ask Tomasz Włodarski, President of Polish Atomic Power Agency, asking him whether the agency is well prepared, has been well prepared by now to assess the technology proposed for Poland ultimately, to assess any and all challenges, aspects of the topic, of the issue. There are experts within your agency, but is that all enough to your mind, basically? Thank you very much for having invited me here. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a matter of the nuclear program and of our participation as a surveillance or supervisory body. It is a real bit of a challenge, yes. Certain experiences have already been gained in this country with regards to Żarnowiec project back in the 90s, basically. Some specialists and resources have been dispersed by now and thus became irrelevant. But taking into account the actual stage we're at this time, well, the answer is yes. In general, there is the complete surveillance structure in place. The regulations are having compiled based upon the most recent requirements, MAEA, WENRA, the Western Regulators Authority, also based on the American requirements. All in all, we have a very well-developed element of the supervisory structure, and the investor is thus well prepared, given this particular aspect, to pursue its business here. The regulations which are in place are satisfactory and are modern, which is not to say, however, that they are not to be subject to any changes and modifications. Conversely, certain elements are already being altered with regards to radiation waste, for instance, and how to cope with it, manage it. Soon, so-called standby procedure is going to be dwelled on at more length, etc. With regards to other aspects of preparation for the supervisor or surveillance structure, the state agency of atomic power has gained over the recent 30 years or so quite an experience with regards to storage facilities for spent fuel, for instance, structural elements of NPP, etc. But ever since the moment the governmental plenipotentiary was appointed and the government started speaking openly in favor of the program, we have been building our competencies, increasing them in the direction of overseeing a structure, facility like NPP, basically. I am quite comfortable about it, so to put it, because I can't really feel any adverse response to the draft, with regards to the draft to be received by the government. Neither do I feel discomfortable about the funding. The funding is there, apparently, available. We are developing our human resources, new specialists and experts, also nuclear surveillance inspectors, safety, security analysis experts, siting study expert, lawyers, whatnot. As from 2009, we have recruited a total of 37 people, and still are planning to headhunt more. Having developed a HR development scheme quite intensely, what we are capable of providing, of delivering using our own forces, well, we cannot tell you we have gained lots of hands-on experience, but whatever can be delivered, whatever is deliverable using our domestic resources, is there in place and will be delivered on time. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or ASN, as the French surveillance agency, have been contracted with us, with our party, for assisting in training projects. In the first place, we have a variety of agreements or contracts with several other countries with advanced nuclear technologies. We're using bits and pieces of their experience a great deal. There are 2 auxiliary programs or schemes having been activated by the World Agency. So-called on-the-job training are going to be carried out for our employees. And coming back now to your question, are you prepared? Well, the answer is yes. Yes, we are prepared, but we are also taking into consideration the fact that there's a lot of work, lots of homework to be done still in terms of developing our competencies, thus becoming even better capable of assessing our safety and security documentation that the investor will submit to us. Yes, fine. How do you think such an assessment or evaluation will look? How much time will it take, do you think? And second, will you be using experiences of certifications for a variety of technologies done already by the other agencies? Because you might not be capable of doing it on your own, as you roughly said. How come you can have? In what way can you achieve this? Well, peace of mind, being able to tell anyone, to tell us here, yes, this is the technology, this is the 100% surety, warranty behind it. Okay, everyone is responsible for her scope of responsibility. Safety and security of technology is responsibility of the investor, then on the operating agency. After it's activated, there is the nuclear surveillance body, agency that contributes to it. We will do our best to use our armed forces and resources to this end, but see, only a well-checked, well-tested, established, technology can be made use of in this country. So based on the results of studies and analyses done by other surveillance institutions, this being the prerequisite, however, not the only or not the complete condition in order for us to meet the requirements of the regulations based first of all on the nuclear law. So we will use our own forces to this end, and we also use the expertise, of course, of the technological support organization. That's a common practice. That's a common practice, really, to use one such expert organization to descend, like in French model, or several such organizations, like in some other countries. Very specialized, very narrow scopes of focus being pursued. Can you give us a specific example for such a technological support organization? In our country, there are at least a few institutes that would be able to pursue such functions, starting from National Center for Nuclear Studies, Research, Central Agency for Radiological Protection, and others. With some of them, we have already entered into framework agreements, making it precise, is defining what we can use and in what scope to this end. Also, the circumstances have been described under which certified institutions, their expertise can be made use of or taken advantage of. It is true for the documentation, for participation in controls, inspections. The institution that will be certified by the chairman, by the president, will be the one to finally cooperate with us. It's a detailed thing, yes, but with regards to selection of technologies, tell us, please, what is going to be the major thing, the number one thing, when it comes to your assessment, when it comes to your evaluation, apart from the flagship thing, the fact that the technology has to be established or well tested, whatnot. Okay, we have formulated a series of requirements to be met by those technologies. In general, our regulations only admit technologies classified as third generation or 3+ generation. Well, those reactors which are now under construction, really, in a variety of places, in various geographies the world over. Well, formulating certain requirements based on radiological analysis is a very basic thing. So this is about the impact under normal operation in some extraordinary conditions. Probability analyses are also important. So the frequency of failures, breakdowns. Well, I may not be, I may be understood in an appropriate way, but we are still speaking about technological appliance, mind you. There's also a probability of, failure, although we are doing our best to eliminate it down to zero, in practice. But still, at least theoretically, we have to cope with the issue somehow. Okay, well, breakdowns, failures of any essential importance. Well, it's not the point really here. It's irrelevant because we are revolving around a very, very much reduced kind of probability of any such failures, and very much minimized, reduced effects of those, if any. Okay, let's deal for a while with the investors' responsibility. Mrs. Piszczak, how about the advancement of your preparations, stages of it? And Mrs. Trojanowska, Minister Trojanowska, can and to what extent the government support these stakeholders here to this end? Okay, we have people employed in our company today who are dealing really with nuclear technologies. That's for the first thing. We are prepared because our recognition of the market is good. We have a good understanding of technologies. Generation 3 or 3+, yes, that's the target, but that's going to be one of the major challenges, how to pose those challenges with an integrated proceedings in order to retain the integrity of the project for one thing, and for the other, how to respond to the market expectations with regards to PAA questions and challenges, especially. Yes, the responsibility on our part is going to be really big, and it is going to a vast extent to determine the actions being taken. One of the expectations that we are addressing is the technological advisory service. As to governmental stance, let me first of all assume a position against what Mr. Wodarski had just said. The role of the state, the role of the role of it in efficient and safe operation of NPP is to provide a safe framework. Also, to eliminate any pressures, I would like to hear from you mostly about support rather than pressures. Okay, but I have to assume a position against it, really. As to the chairman of the position of the chairman of the National Atomic Power Agency, this position is very, very important because there is a division or distribution of responsibilities between those stakeholders, the governmental administration, and the selection of technologies, of the technology for the Polish NPP will certainly be carried out as part of a discourse. Not really a debate, but, well, we will definitely keep you informed. We'll be considering the best-in-class solutions, safety and security, nuclear safety being the key, and radiological protection being the key as well. We cannot afford selecting technology that would not meet those purposes, and the Atomic Power Agency's role is key in this respect. How about any threats? Are we going to? Is it right? Is it legitimate to have any threats in face of what you're saying? Yes, the selection of technologies of the technology ultimately. It is the very crucial thing. The time caesura is key to this end. Only afterwards can we know what kind of requirements still are to be met by the technology selection procedure. Then the moment will come for all of us to sit together, come together and have a debate about the nuclear surveillance aspects, for instance. But the very selection of the technology is going to be of crucial importance. Since Mrs. Piszczek will have to leave us in a couple of minutes' time, should you have any questions to her, please go ahead. Before she leaves, Civic Movement for Nuclear Power is the organization that I represent. Taking the opportunity of having you here, I represent, to an extent, in milieu of students, university students, both stationary and extramural. They are very much concerned about what will happen with them, what will help to do, what their position will be after they finish their studies. We would like very much to avoid a threat of the drainage of brains once again that's been affecting our country over the recent decades. All of those whom I met and know, I'm acquainted with, are very much supporters, followers of nuclear. But we all need real hands-on experience and in-depth study, further study, complemented study on the nuclear. Any more questions? Thank you very much. Andrzej Jaworski is my name. Just question directly to Mrs. Piszczek. You've said about costs, expenditures, credits, lending facilities. Have you got a business plan in place which is telling you that, well, the 50 billion zloty will be reimbursable? I clearly said it is a complementary option. Okay, I would like to ask you exactly and directly, what was the cost of your works done by this far, in order to gain a framework for NPP in Poland? And second question to Mr. Trojanowska. The minister will be with us still, so maybe just to Mr. Piszczek, just to make you quiet. There's one more question that we are going to take. Here, the gentleman in the first row. I'm Wiesław Głębka, representing Choczewo commune as a wójt, the manager of the local administration. What is your feeling about the situation that Vice Prime Minister Piechociński, together with the Polish Peasants' Party, PSL, have just declared that they don't want to have an NPP here in this country. No NPP. Just windmills, wind farms. I've made 600 kilometers to reach this place here and backwards. That's a coalition party. So I heard it, on the radio on my way here. I feel awkward about it. How about your feeling? I represent the West Pomeranian province, which is voivodeship. The siting studies are now being done. Very much neighboring on each other, in the very unlikely event that both will be found to have a deficit. Eliminating them, what is the following procedure? My understanding was that the funding would be external rather than state budgetary. Is my understanding correct that the NPP will not have the state funding involved as a project? That would exhaust the set of questions maybe for today. At this stage. Okay, I'm going to answer questions. Tomek Kwiatkowski, manager of our investment office, will stay with you, and maybe he will take over just in case. We have our director Makos, director for communication and PR. So in case of a crisis situation, I could ask her or I could ask him to replace me and because I'm really very much in a hurry for other urgent business to attend. I'm very sorry. Okay, as regards investors' actions, a very important element that we have never neglected has been the cooperation with tertiary schools, university level schools, colleges, etc. That's a time-consuming process, elongated process. We have contracts, we have agreements signed for the purpose, sometimes funding some studies of faculties to this end. Answering directly to a question, once the program is in place, accepted, we have an employment program for our company, which will obviously make use of our domestic resources. Just to make it quiet, those of you who are going to be students in future, yes, by involving the means, the resources should be used, obviously, in a much rational manner. Obviously, it takes time. It's for you to be better qualified, requalified, etc. Have to be recruited, and then it takes at least a couple of years. But this is definitely going to be covered by our long-term employment program or scheme. Yes, the answer is yes. In terms of our company, as well as our company business, as well as delegating employees, trainees abroad. This is definitely going to be taken into account and managed. Just to make it quiet about it, we have evolved a very good cooperation with the National Center for Nuclear Studies Research. There is a whole lot of really fantastic people, renowned experts, contributing to the Vienna-based agency, etc., who can make their contribution, who are doing it already. So this area will definitely be recognized and properly exploited by us, properly managed. Let me reassure you of it. Now, I'm not sure if the context, if I'm getting right the context, the sources of financing, of funding of the project, basically, yes? Okay. Let me remind you one important thing. The final decision about how to define the funding structure will be made within the mother company. There's a whole system of daughter companies around it, whose role is to recognize a variety of alternative solutions about funding the project. So let me tell you once again, there is a variety of sources for gaining the capital, for raising the funds. The very attractive source is what the vendors contribute. So funding the export agency is very attractive an option compared to any other available source. And probably this will have to be complemented with a lending facility, with a credit or loan, name it as you will, based on commercial conditions. We'll see what happens. The variety of structures, the capital or the versus the indebtedness. Okay. What will be the share of Polish investors that you can count on? Or state-owned companies, or any other like entities that can contribute to investment project, and to what extent you can think of a lending facility? Well, 50 billion zloty is not an amount you could possibly raise overnight. Anyone can say, well, we have something, okay, or we are going to have something, okay. Based on what I can tell you today, well, the talks with the domestic partners are ongoing, mind you. The leading partner, that is the PGE, has assumed that 30% will be taken over by domestic partners. How about capital versus indebtedness or debt? This is going to be a decision to be made within the mother company structures, and the final decision will only be taken even if you are not satisfied with this answer. It's like in Lithuania, all the technologies have been selected, the investor had a say on it, etc. And all of a sudden it appeared that the funding was unsatisfactory, not available simply. We would like to avoid having such a lesson to learn here. We would like to produce an offer with a variety of components. We cannot now have a offer you a stiff structure, a rigid structure of funding that we can offer to you right now. There is a whole lot of integrated elements within this contribution-related structure that we are pursuing. Integrated procedure, in other words. Tarek will tell you more about the fuel structure, for instance. Please take a look at it in a most complex and comprehensive manner possible. The best offer will come over at a certain point in time, at a certain point along the way of the so-called iteration process. The conditions to be acceptable for both parties, ultimately. This is what I can say at this stage right now. How about state treasury contribution? If not Mr. Piszczek, then Mrs. Minister? Are there going to is there going to be any budgetary funding provided, made available? Not really, right? Okay. At the moment, no such solution has been conceived, but today we are all living through the pieces of news coming from the British market. There's a whole debate about the efficiency of nuclear there in the UK going on these days. Large amounts needed for the funding, long periods of credit repayment, and long licensing periods. All this making the funding very minutely pre-programmed, pre-planned. Therefore, we are, in a sense, waiting till investor has his homework done. You can obviously throw on the table a variety of examples to be considered, etc. But at some point in time, you can think of what's happened in the past, like long-term contracts, how they functioned, and mechanisms that provided for operations of NPP with regards to the basis of its charge, of its install capacity, etc. Right now we have such schemes at work for renewables-based stations, but without this very initial input, this discussion, the realistic one, this discussion could be only made academic rather than realistic. There were two other questions to be taken, I think. During one of the previous conferences, we, as a specific purpose vehicle, have prepared a report for support mechanisms also, including this aspect. We are not going to close ourselves to any like options. Having used the experiences that we have gained, definitely such a comprehensive solution will be proposed. Now, the guy of Choczewo commune, your question is very difficult. I always try to escape such questions. I am hired for minding my business. I'm an SPV woman. It's difficult for me to assume a position against political matters, issues, as long as we cannot, as long as we don't have a mother company's resolution on our table, on our shareholders meeting table, that we quit the project. As long as this is not the case, we are minding our business as usual. Obviously, we are sort of informed in a variety of senses of this word. We are affected, mentally to an extent, but by all those things that are happening in the media, mass media sphere, whatnot. We are trying to isolate ourselves from all those. Did I satisfy you? Not really. Well, in the process of selection of the places, 92 various communes in Poland, communal locations, first appeared. Then we have selected, we have shortlisted 10 of them, and 3 known to all of you are now being the case. That means are being considered. So we have alternative solutions, just in case, to make it quieter. It's rather impossible. It's rather impossible, for anything, expected to happen on a neighboring communes. It's one tectonic area, really. Okay, let me rephrase. You'll be informed in due time. There's going to be environmental analysis going to be done. We'll see what happens rather sooner than later. Today, no names, no indications of the names. Okay, no locations. Thank you very much, Ms. Piszczek. I would like to tell Mr. Wójt that we are now dealing with only a draft governmental resolution rather than a resolution. Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Piszczek. We now can continue our panel revolving around safety and security aspects, issues. Lots is being told about safety, security, but how about safety of the investor? In order to avoid a situation where the decision has been made and we are going further up and there is a follow-up, etc., and all of a sudden we can see a political option altered and the process is overnight inhibited. I would like Mrs. Deputy Minister to comment briefly on it. How about your nuclear program? Maybe it should comprise such an aspect in order to reassure the investor there is going to be outlays expended. The choice of investors also about spending money counted in hundreds of millions of zloty. So how about that? How about a security solution? Well, I can very well remember the Żarnowiec situation and how it's and for it to reappear would be completely unacceptable. I'm clearly aware of the fact that the status of preparation of the investor in the governmental administration is very specific. Well, we can't at the moment afford, to make the first good impression twice. Either we go for it or we quit, right? Basically. So, to be more specific, both investor and the government administration, by giving green line for the acceptance of the program, for the approval of it, we need very specific answers. Where, by whom, together with whom, the investment, the project, etc. This is the sine qua non condition, the precondition for being able to make further decisions. And very crucially, afterwards, the Investment Act contains the absolute prerequisite that once the very crucial decision is made that the investor will use this particular technology with this particular consortium, absolutely decides for good, once for good, that any political changes, any sudden economic changes will be charging the political class, will go to the credit of the political class making such decisions. What can I say? Altogether, we have at some point in time to consent, to agree such decision, such crucial decision. And for that we would need about 2-3 years. It's not a very simple thing, the green light doesn't it's not a decision yet, but we are doing our best in order to achieve the final decision. Okay, understood. The very investment process is interesting in terms of safety and security. Therefore, the set of questions prepared by you, Mr. Wójt of Chorzowa, has dealt with it too. We have the Chief Inspector for Nuclear Surveillance with us. What will your role be and your institution, your supervisory institution, at this particular stage of investment and afterwards, after the NPP starts operating? First of all, thank you very much for having invited me and giving me the floor now. I am a deputy of chairman of the State Atomic Power Agency, so my position and Mr. Chairman's positions are the same thing. It would be strange for it to be otherwise. Exactly. So we simply share our position, our stance. Now, with regards to our role on the stage of, at the present stage, the one of commencing the investment process, and then the activation and operation of the NPP. The surveillance is driven by commonly accepted principles internationally. That means evaluating the safety, evaluating the documentation related to making certain decisions. First of all, issuing a building permit. But first, we are requested for opining the siting matters, issues. for that, we are very well, for that purpose, we are very well prepared right now. Apart from the ordinance, which is the decree on the siting of the Council of Ministers, dated 2012, the year 2012, the chairman of our agency has issued implementing regulations making the thing more precise and designed to facilitate the process. These practices, the practice has covered meeting investor representatives and addressing any and all questions, concerns they may have. Also, there is an option provided to address the chairman of Atomic Power Agency with regards to any and all technical, organizational, etc. questions related directly to the licensing process. We are now focused on the construction process, but the siting, location or siting decisions and studies, analysis, etc. must be carried out before then, of course. We, as a surveillance institution, are prepared to it and are trying our best to be even better reassured about the business. At the activation, startup, and operation stage, we are going to pursue routine controls, inspections within the site to check whether the processes taking place there are in line with the safety report, which is the very foundation for the building permit to be issued, of course. And we will be issuing more and more decisions regarding the startup. And then on the operation. In this aspect, our actions will not divert from what is the case the world over. President Włodarski, Mr. Chairman Włodarski has mentioned, among other things, the US NRC contract and the franchise agency contract established by us. But we've been intensifying our contacts with other like agencies, like the Swedish one, Swedish Surveillance Authority, UK one. So we try our best really to use bits and pieces of their experiences, thus tailoring our safety, security regulations processes to the international standards. It is important also to remind you of so-called coordination system, which is established in the atomic law and which is to be managed by the chairman of Polish Atomic Energy Agency, but it also gathers around it other controlling institutions having a say on operation, like coordination system, reaching out to center inspection, environmental inspection, office for technological supervision, agents, labor inspection, etc. All those institutions having their own roles determined, their respective roles, determined by the relevant regulations. This system is designed in order to increase efficiency, facilitate the actions, operations for all the institutions, entities involved. The Office of Technological Supervision deals with controls of materials and appliances and devices in variety of aspects of functioning of NPP. It is important that we have included in the regulations some very basic, maybe very well-known principles, but still very important ones, crucial ones, like those related to so-called in-depth assessment. There's a kind of philosophy telling us about safety or security, which not only has to do with barriers, obstacles, so to speak, rendering it difficult for a product to come out, to leave the site, but there's much about safety standards to be achieved, safety systems, arrangements. All that has to be included in the design. We are nearing the end of our conference. Since we have a national center expert with us, Tomasz, let me ask you. Having observed and listened carefully to what has been said by now and the questions that have been asked by the participants here, to your mind, what will be the major challenges with regards to the process in question? The price of technology, the location, optimum location, or whatever else? Being the institution. Well, my institution as a division being, I've been organizing a division within this institution for the recent 4 years or so, which is called TESO, and which is meant to support state organizations as a basic thing. Its task is to prepare competent experts for making analysis, inspections later on in nuclear facilities. To this end, we have been cooperating with IAEA, with other TISA organizations, with potential suppliers, etc., in order for us to minutely get to know the technologies, recognize them, etc. Technologies that are going to be developed by us further on. Same is true about the materials that we are working on together, be it with our US partners or other partners. The very basic thing for us is that once the specific offer to be analyzed comes over, for us to be ready with in-depth knowledge rather than looking for people outside capable of analyzing things, etc. So recognition of the very crucial things and aspects and how to analyze them using the tools available, instruments available, is the very crucial thing. So there is a specialized division. However, the Center of Nuclear Study as such deals with much wider a scope of interest, of research, of study, and we somehow cooperate to these ends. One cannot possibly build an NPB within a country which wouldn't have a knowledge on technologies, on the recent developments worldwide, etc. That's why we cooperate and contribute to other projects worldwide, pursuing safety analyzers with other TSO agencies in cooperation. Some of our experts exceed the topics only related to the construction of power plants as such on an ongoing basis. We have been developing an R&D background, R&D infrastructure. Yes, it's very important, I should think. Indeed, what we have constructed by far, developed, is an introduction to real analysis, real competences. We have people with us who have been trained over the recent 4 years incessantly. But what you have asked about, madam, is the very key thing. And this is, namely, the government's decision about not only pursuing a Polish program, but also on the method of funding of these actions here in Poland. Because the Polish nuclear power program has solved many issues. However, the funding of this R&D infrastructure, analytical infrastructure, has not been solved as an issue, and this calls for being tackled. We have been participating in funding of and all businesses around the Maria reactor, which is a research reactor, and the very key thing is for us to have international trust, to be international reliable. There must be a condition prevailing that the country is really competent, that the country is one of expertise. Therefore, to have human resources in place is very important. A question to Professor Strupczewski now. You analyze carefully what is going on outside, whether in Europe, the atomic projects, nuclear projects, whether in Europe or in other continents. What are the lessons we can learn, you have learned from those other countries? What is our special focus for today? Ladies and gentlemen, you have asked a very crucial question. It's difficult to discern the very most important element. However, having been through a variety of experiences worldwide, human resources is the key element. Those who are responsible for building an NPP, preventing delays, etc. If this is not the case, we have delays in NPP construction, which is calculable into very specific spend, the interest on our capital that will have to be put at stake when it comes to building the NPP. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the American agencies working on order of the government has evaluated that if there is an organization operating with an experience of the same type of reactor in a new country, in a new location, new site, that means straight away a reduction in the expenditure of various sorts of the order of 20–30%. The sum of 50 billion zloty seems threatening at first sight. The cost is a very important thing, an issue. But let me remind you, on the other hand, that in the year 2013, our Western neighbor, Germany, spent for subsidies for renewable sources of energy, have spent 20 billion euros, which is about 80 billion zloty, just in terms of subsidies, subventions. It seems for us a threatening sum, 50 billion zloty. Maybe they can afford it, I don't know, but they're just spending huge money on renewables, which will require being subsidized in the year 2014, 15, 16, and so on and so forth. More and more of 20 billion euros or whatever around it. So I'm sorry, but my opinion about nuclear paying back or not paying back, and about this amount of 50 billion is very different than some of the other partners in our discussions. If we are internationally reliable, as Mr. Jackowski said, and if we can achieve cheap crediting, following examples of the not much remote past, such an NPP project may appear to be a very good business for us. As regards health and safety protection and environmental protection, I will dwell on that more after the break in the second part of our conversation here. There are more questions to Ms. Minister or to Mr. Chairman? Okay. A question to Mr. Wodarski. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Safety of radioactive material. You said there shouldn't be a problem about it. But we're being bombed with pieces of information. It's not really the case. A tank with cobalt has disappeared a couple of weeks ago, I'm told, by the media in the south of Poland. A very similar event 2 or 3 months ago. Looks like no one really takes charge of it, and no one can control it. How about the supervision? These are the PAP-based, Polish Press Agency-based bits of information, news. How about that? What Mr. Trojnowska said and what Professor Stupczewski said. You have offered two very different visions about the NPP project. Mrs. Trojnowska said that the State Treasury will not basically contribute to the project. So the private business is charged with the burden. International partnerships, etc. So theoretically, we should not speak in terms of, well, we will have to pay the cost of something, as you roughly said. Because neither me nor you, any one of you, will have to pay it for NPP. Because the State Treasury is not to be charged, yes? Unless, and that's a very, very basic question, Mrs. Piszczek had to leave us. Chairman Grad is not with us. Maybe this is why. PGE, that's what I mean. PGE and EJ1 are not prepared financially. They are not. They don't know what to do about this stuff. There is a kind of coalition crisis within the government because the Peasants' Party all of a sudden said, well, we're switching into a different position. All of a sudden we're not supporting the nuclear project. And looks like everything goes on, revolves on, but no one knows what's going to happen, really, in a further or more remote, less remote future. You have mentioned the German example. Well, if there are investors coming over, no credits would be the case if there are so much willing to invest. The prime ministers, not only vice prime ministers, but also the prime minister's positions, opinions he uttered or expressed in the recent couple of years about nuclear have varied. For those who carefully are observing the process, well, there's a great question mark hanging over all these things. I would like you to take some position. Okay, President Jackowski said that we are being looked at from the outside. They like what we're doing, etc. How about our society? Isn't our society the most important aspect? Mr. Parsons once commenced the studies on society and their and social stances. If we do it like without governmental acceptance, no, it's impossible. I could see the Flamanville project in France with the EPR best state-of-the-art reactor. under construction. There's the state administration, there are local representatives in very good cooperation. The governmental acceptance has to be definite and has to be visited and reconfirmed every single day, a week. Otherwise, we may have an increasing number of opponents for the NPP program. If the message is contrary, if the vice minister says, I don't want that anymore, then I'm very curious, how about Ms. Minister here? You had the budget for it, you were supposed to fund some spots to advertise the thing, and all of a sudden your vice prime minister says, I don't want that, we're quitting, I would like to have wind farms, etc. How about that? Our three communes, our three shortlisted communes are already making losses, great losses. So if you are all withdrawing from the project in a couple of days' time, couple of weeks' time, couple of months' time, are we going to take you to court? What will happen? Since we are very much tourist-centered communes, we have funding, budgetary reserve for building some pensions, hotels, whatnot. People are afraid of having nuclear close to the place. So it's a stagnation moment. We would like to have instead governmental acceptance for the decision. Mrs. Minister, I would like to have your stance, your position expressed against what is going on within your own government. How about Mr. Piechociński's position? What do we make out of it? Well, as to the established technologies, some of you said, does it mean that, is it to say that Polish Atomic Power Agency will be more inclined to IREF or AREVA? Because I haven't heard about any more state-of-the-art technologies. Maybe Mrs. Chairman, Chairperson, whatever, can assume a position against it. I'm chair of the City Council of Wejherowo in Pomerania. Me and my colleagues have an impression that the decision on the commencement of the whole procedure, the whole game about being played about nuclear, has been withdrawn, sort of, with regards to a safety issue. The shale gas all of a sudden came on stage, and it appears that the Polish society is quite convinced that, professional power plants, gas-fueled, will be safer. Well, maybe let's quit the NPP. Let's see what happens about the fourth generation, how it develops and stuff. And let's try and do it otherwise. And now the question to Mr. Włodarski. I wouldn't really cross out those who have dealt with the Żarnowiec project. Many of them have remained in this country. Many of them are available. The information that these objects, these facilities are not that dangerous, based on their knowledge and expertise, causes that in our region there is not much resistance against a project like that. But how about PGE-EJ and their stance? There is a misconception on their part with regards to social consulting. There are regions where research is being done or has already been done. There is a standby location. We should like to avoid a situation where we consult the society, local communities, We consult local communities only after the location is the site is selected. No way. Mrs. Minister, the situation is really serious. PGE is due soon, rather soon, to enter negotiations with the companies due to provide technologies and capital as regards the conditions, terms and conditions. Without clearly favorable political environment, it would be impossible. Opponents of nuclear, who are a minority in this society, are supported by political centers from abroad, like the Heinrich Böll Foundation, which is subsidized by German budget, state budget, and supports the opponents here. What would it be like if a Polish governmental organization would support opponents elsewhere, like in Germany? I would be scandalous, right? Here is not scandalous at all. Elsewhere in the world, opponents use their own money, their own organization's money. Maybe you could make a TV appearance, dear Mrs. Minister, unveiling the lies that the nuclear opponents use. 293 euros per megawatt hour in Denmark for renewables. Very close figure for Germany. These are the arguments. No one in Poland would be ready or willing to pay 1,300 zloty per megawatt hour. So how expensive the renewables are. Please make such an appearance. Use the arguments, specific arguments. It's a very necessary thing. Very much a bit of a hot debate. I'm Włodzimierz Czerniakowski, representing the Marszałek of the Pomeranian Voivodeship province. I would like to refer to Wójt Kępka's position of Choczewo. Social dialogue is very important. Yes, we started the process 3 years ago. Now it's sort of fading away. We're deprived of support in this respect. We've been bearing costs of this enterprise up to a certain limit, really. Today we cannot campaign without being funded efficiently. And second, we're being deprived of arguments from the central level. The signals coming from the central level, from the government, simply put, are so contradictory that society has been disoriented. So what are they going to do? Is there going to be an NPP or not? Are they going to build it or not? Come on. At the moment, the stage is that we don't have formal documents as indispensable for domestic level operations or actions. Well, one of the documents, important ones, have been Strategy for Regional Development. This was meant to have a so-called functional area included. All of a sudden, we find ourselves in a stage where we have a developmental strategy with us. The regional operational program is there, be it on paper, and we only have one investment project under construction, the transmission line Przełowo-Gdańsk. We need education for NPP. We should bear in mind that our goal is to educate the human resources to meet the needs of the labor market. Maybe the money is not wasted, maybe it's not thrown away, but the HR development money, will it provide us with a return of investment? When? Of what sort? What amount? When should we begin the education process so that we can gain a result, a demanded result? Otherwise, if without such structures, without such incentives, without using our personnel, our staff the people ready and willing to work effectively, we will definitely have a drainage of brains. They will all start emigrating. Thank you very much, Mr. Gimka. Thank you for your patience. I'm always a patient man. As to shale gas, there are two investors, PGING and PNG, ConocoPhillips, whatever. Let's not mix up the two topics. There's no technology available in place for shale. We don't know how much of it there is, etc., available. With regards to education, 3,200 mega per plant is a place for operation for so many people at present. There is available locally near Wejherowo. There are technicians and technologists employed. Wejherowo region, Wejherowo the city, can also contribute with the human resources, ready and capable of working there. In France, I saw a clear case of cooperation between the investor and the secondary level schools. But we cannot do anything without acceptance of both local governments and central level government. And I would like Ms. Trojanowska to assume a position against it, because otherwise we're going to be talking, chatting is yet another conference that I'm attending, and my impression is that we are all the time with the same place. Let's move forward one day. Your answers, please. Let me try and answer whether we are going to pay or not. To pay, namely the costs to be borne or incurred by the investor. Ladies and gentlemen, dear, we are clearly aware of the fact that we all use electric current, and the electricity bills cover all the investors' expenditures. If we pay for 4 billion zloty as a subsidy to renewables, it is not the government that pays. Renewables must be there, we are told. So the energy associations transfer the funds to renewables operators' accounts. But it's ultimately we, the consumers, that pay those bills. Therefore, I've said that the 50 billion has to be payable back to us, have to be seen as us bearing this charge, bearing this burden. In Germany, consumer protection associations say that about 800,000 German households have problems with paying their electricity bills because of so high electricity bills, one of the highest in Europe, because of those subsidizing systems, renewables policy and whatnot. So it's not only a matter of the investors, it's a business of all of us. Therefore, the question of gaining trust from banks to do the lending, to provide the lending, is important, is really important, because this is what the credits and interest to be borne thereupon is dependent on. Thank you. Three issues for me to take. First, the resources that are disappearing. The situation is not very strange about it. From time to time, things are disappearing, fading away. What is consolating is the fact that the number of those sources or resources, the amount of those rather, is less and less year by year. It's a matter of culture of users. The Atom Energy Agency detects it, fine, but the users are better or worse, as everywhere. It's a very good thing that this
culture of safety has been increasing over the recent years. But on the other hand, it's really a nasty thing that the sources are disappearing. Maybe it's not really a matter of robbery. It's a matter of bad aura that prevails around them because of propaganda aspects and whatnot, black PR from some sources. So the users are different, but these are this disgracious examples, simply put. Fortunately, marginal ones. Mr. Gambka said something about supporting and technology as well. The Nuclear Supervisory Office does not really participate in selecting the technology as such. Either the technology has passed the test of time in practice, or if it is under construction yet, that should be at least based on analysis and research and studies. But we as Supervisory Office were not going to support any of the options, mind you. The regulations that we are part of are based on, contribute to, etc., are not intended to prefer any technology, are technology neutral. The Żarnowiec thing, I'm not crossing out Żarnowiec experience. Come on, I haven't said that. Myself and my colleague, Mr. Jorkowski, in the time Żarnowiec was being built, we were young inspectors of nuclear supervision. We are living examples of experience gained here in this country. We would like simply to have many more people with us on which this country has spent money on their education, and they are unavailable right now, simply put. Thank you. Well, there's a whole spectrum of questions. How about your business with the government? That's a sweet thing, really. Mr. Gempka asked me. So starting from this question up to whatever else. You're right. You're absolutely right that the political decision at the central level is absolutely necessary at this stage already. Not only from the standpoint of procedures that have been started. Only Mr. Chairman here has a personal distance against such a decision, central decision. But I share the view that the time has come to take the 0-1 decision, either-or decision. Yes, you're right. I would like to say that as a public servant, I am obliged to implement tasks based on state's energy policy, power policy, and based on statutory delegations, which make us obliged to submit a draft resolution to the government. Same premises are those that drive Mr. Piechociński. I haven't heard him ever say anything against purposefulness of NPP. Never ever. Conversely, ever since the moment the government has decided to start a discussion on nuclear, Mr. Piechociński has been patronizing the project. So I don't know what's happening really. You are talking now about a variety of aspects. Very good. Such a narrative from energy inspectors, experts started inhibiting NPP project, but we tried within the ministry to strike a balance. There's no collision to make people aware that that's no collision, and to make all the stakeholders aware that there's no collision between shale gas and renewables, possibly, and NPP, for instance, nuclear in general. Given our specific Polish situation, searching for an optimum base foundation, is a must. Well, looking for conventional, unconventional gas, using it for energy-related, power-related purposes is premature right now. Not yet. It's out of the point. We'll see what happens. Mr. Jaworski has spoken about costs and expenses, those to be used from the budgetary resources and others. My reply with regards to non-funding by the government is valid, but developing the human resources, yes, and the infrastructure, yes, will call for using allocated funding. There is funding allocated for such purpose. These are fractions of budgetary costs, development of administration and legal infrastructure, but there is much truth, and Professor Stupczewski is right by saying that bearing the cost of electric energy is an important thing, is a crucial thing, really. Once we reconcile a price, then the operators, the producers, the generators will develop their margins. There's a whole thing about the taxation policy, the whole superstructure above what we have. In our justification, we refer to rational, balanced cost side, while not as yet having assumed a position against or with respect to the state policy, the state stance with regards to nuclear. I absolutely share the view that the prerequisite for soliciting social acceptance is definitely a reconciled stance within the between the political forces. The involvement of 150 to 300 years may seem an abstract thing from our perspective, but this is the kind of involvement that's really at stake. Our program speaks in terms of direct delegation, and the time horizon specified there is up to 2030, but we are definitely outlining the perspective for many further years, like waste management, like spent fuel management. All this has to be taken into account, landfill sites, whatnot. All this has to be taken into account within a much longer temporal perspective. That's quite obvious. Well, showing how other technologies are not up to our expectations, this is not our task to fight other technologies. My task is really to prepare a program for implementing nuclear in Poland. I'm aware that such discussions are needed and necessary, but it's not the administration's business to kind of struggle with a variety of options, technological options and whatnot. Mr. Lipka has made an appeal to my party. Well, let me disappoint you, I don't represent any party, any of the parties. Maybe it is a weak point, being a plenipotentiary, but on taking on myself such tasks, I wasn't clearly aware of the fact that I would need any political background in order to be efficient. However it sounds, civilization project that we are pursuing is uncomparable with anything else with regards to any economic scale. It's a giant project, not only investment-wise, also culturally, also technologically, and in several other aspects. So we would need to have a consensus, absolutely, between political options, so that regardless of who is in power, who comes to it, we may have a stable sense of reliability along the line of what we're doing and what we're after. Obviously, discussions with adherents of other technologies is part of the picture, but it's not really part of our immediate action. The cost of lack of nuclear power is something to be dealt with, right? That's 1,300 zloty per megawatt hour in Poland. The kerosene lamp for the rest, for the remainder of users, right? Those who can't bear it. I haven't provided myself yet with such in-depth analysis, but, well, I trust you if your calculation is reliable. How about coal? We haven't spoken about coal for a decade or so to come. Coal, regardless of any developments, coal will stay with us. We'll be there. We are waiting in tension for the European Commission's communiqué proposing certain directions of the future EU energy policies. But if the carbon trend is maintained as it is, we'll absolutely will have to diversify our fuel base. But we can only successively replace the decommissioned units, decommissioned planes, with other types of energy or power, nuclear included. Never, ever an overnight change. This is what our economy wouldn't bear. Absolutely. Generation 4 is not something we are going to wait for. Generation 4 is due to solve the problems of safety and security of spent fuel. In other words, the longest living elements are to be burned within the fuel, and uranium that is used in thermal power plants also is being burnt out. So that's a very different story. The technologies that need being developed that will be an answer to the to such related problems. As to selection of the technology, please don't misunderstand us. Wherever it comes to safety discussion, technologies is about the direction of investment. It's not for us to decide between the more obsolete, less obsolete reactors or state-of-the-art reactors. Speaking of Fukushima, the studies made afterwards have shown that the reactors in Europe are in operation for over 10 years now, would not need being decommissioned at all. Not yet. But what is going to be placed here in Poland will definitely have taken into consideration even the heaviest, even the severest of the breakdowns or failures having happened by this far. To avoid doubt, only 3 and 3+ generation are going to be taken into account. No generation 2 reactors. Well, sources, are they well controlled in Poland? Well, there is a transparency trend prevailing right now. So information is provided on a loss of any, even the smallest, slightest source. This incident that you've mentioned is INES-1 scale incident. Some supervisor officers in the world do not even inform you about such things. So it's really marginal, it's really insignificant. But as a supervisory office, we are all informed on an ongoing basis about it. If the user of such source has not supervised efficiently the radiation generation sources, that's not the point, of course. But referring to what Mr. Wodarski said, the investor role and the operator's role of an nuclear facility is key. It's a very key thing. Well, the supervisory function is of help, but if there is no safety and security culture in place, if there are no experts in place, then the nuclear power plant may appear not to be as safe as we would be up to. Let us have a 10 minutes break now, and please feel invited to presentation and strictly discussion on the safety. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are still patient enough to stay with us for a while and cooperate with us after this break, I'll try to be as brief as possible. The Areva, Westinghouse, and they will cover technicalities in their presentations. I would like to say a couple of words about impact on the environment, natural environment of NPP, according to the state of knowledge that we have achieved so far. The advantages are obvious, seemingly. No SO2, NOx, CO2 emissions, no dust emissions, ashes emission, no significant radiation emitted under normal operating conditions. NPP ensured separation of waste from the human environment. For how long? In principle, as long as it needs for any such waste not to become of a threat, not to become dangerous to the human environment, to natural environment. Also, nuclear energy has a proven record of waste as non-dangerous, not obnoxious, not destroying element, and cheap electric energy in a variety of countries in the world, in Europe in the first place, is also part of a proven track of nuclear. In Europe, in France or in Finland, the rates paid by users, by consumers for energy, for electricity, are ranked among the lowest in Europe, at least. Lovísa in Finland, very good example. Clean sky, clean water, cheap electricity, and coal to be saved for future generations if possible. Important for Poland. Very clear case and very nice example. The question that we tend to be very much concerned about is radiation. Please see it in an appropriate proportion. Radiation has been with us ever since the universe was created or came into existence. So it's been with us on Earth here for a couple of billions of years. And in a variety of countries the world over, the radiation level is different. It varies because of the varying nature of minerals that surround us or the heights that we live on. Not because there's been an explosion somewhere, here or there. In Poland, within 70 years, the dose that we are receiving is about 200 millisieverts within 70 years. In Finland, it's different. In England, for instance, about 500 millisieverts. 300 millisieverts of a difference within a lifetime. This is the perspective we have to consider for NPP, in the context of NPP. from NPP, the dose obtained is about 0.01 millisievert per year. Here is the road having been made by NPP technologies in terms of emissions, iodine, dust, ashes. See how it has been diminished for generation 2 reactors, second generation reactors. As you have heard several times by far, third generation reactors are going to be the case, at least here in Poland, whose emissions are even lesser than that. How it relates to natural dosages, millisieverts, not within lifetime, but within 1 year, within 12 months. In Finland, 7 millisievert per year, 2.4 worldwide. In Poland, same thing, 2.5 as the average. International Committee on Radiation Protection has decided that NPP emitted doses ought not to exceed 1 millisievert. The surveillance offices would demand the doses to be even lesser than that, more restrictive an approach. 0.3, the industry willing to reconcile it with the supervisors has determined the standard is 0.3, and the level for the NPP tends to be normally as low as reasonably possible. That's the description of it. In all the French NPPs, of which there is a 50 plus at the moment, the average dose is 0.01 millisievert. That is really obtained, really produced. Maybe not all of you have traveled to Finland, but we come from a variety of places in Poland. See the results of moving from Wrocław to Krakow, for instance. Not a mean city. A Wrocław dweller, having moved to Krakow, will be receiving per annum 0.3 millisievert more than while living in Wrocław, because of the natural radiation from the soil. How much would he receive from a nuclear power plant in the area surrounding his dwelling place? 0.01 millisievert. So by moving from Wrocław to Krakow, he is getting 30 times more than by being a neighbor of an NPP area. I haven't ever seen any advertisements discouraging people moving from one city to the other, because you may get over-radiated there. Don't move there. In Flamanville, that's a nice picture from there. Of course, the seasons of the year change and the weather changes with them. But Flamanville is an example of close location between the NPP site and human dwellings, normal houses. People live very close to it and never take any fear. While in operation, NPPs give very small doses. It's not about a specified valve, one dedicated specified nozzle, or whatever. Zirconium cladding, reactor containment, and a safety facility, safety case, and starting from pastilles. This all contributes to a whole safety system. There's been a case of melted core and PMI power plant. No health-related effects were detected, apart from all the whole society getting scared about what happened. TMI. We are not going to build a TMI like NPP or other accident-prone NPP. We are going to have with us a third generation NPP with more than 50 years of experience internationally as far as reactors in operations are concerned. The European utility requirements will be the case there, and our national requirements are very close to those, mind you, will cause that there wouldn't be any threat of any further than 800 meters away of the NPP site. As a principle, we determine 800 meters as a limited or reduced use zone, even though there might appear heavy circumstances like molten core. No long-term actions for any further up, like evacuation of people, etc., will be needed within any area more distant than 800 meters. Protective action up to 300 kilometers, up to 3 kilometers. I'm sorry, not more than that. And any such severe breakdown might, by calculation, occur every 1 million reactor years, or other calculations would say every 100,000 reactor years. Here is the references. Professor Wierciński, Kurczyński have made the calculations. BWR, BWR in the US, all such reactors have been certified. In some other places in the world, like the US reactor, have been certified for the UK. So there is no need of long-term or even medium-term actions to be taken. With the zone of 800 meters has been determined for one of those reactors. It may vary a little bit with respect to another type of reactor. Let us see what choices to be made with regards to the technology, with regards to the reactor type, and then we'll tell you more exactly about the zones and reduced operations and possible measures to be taken, just in case. Early death rates as caused by heavy, severe breakdowns in power industry. That's for Chernobyl, BMK, 0.16 deaths per megawatt year, calculated separately for this type of electric energy generator. And there is also an indicator for all the other, apart from coal-operated, oil-operated, natural gas-operated, liquid gas-operated, hydro. And this is the type of NPPs we would like to produce. Practically zero death rate. It is a matter of fact that in Japan there is an earthquake and tsunami wave that has caused a destruction of NPP with the old BWR reactors, and the reason was understated security measures, or protection measures rather, against the wave of tsunami, whose size has been misappreciated by the Japanese hydrologists. And the result was that the people locally have been evacuated within the radius of 30 kilometers, but no one, there wasn't even one single incidence of death because of this particular breakdown. So, earthquake and tsunami has caused 25,000 deaths. There is no radiation-related death effect. Complete destruction of the province and destruction for reactors, and there is a shift in the level of the whole Iceland or Isle by 2 meters. This all was due clearly to earthquake and tsunami, whereas the effective doses for children are specified in green here. See, no health effect. As to further effects of radiation, the food collected within the area of roughly a couple of square kilometers have been withdrawn, and even the greatest doses received by the NPP staff have proved not to be of threat to the health. They haven't exceeded the admissible doses. So the human losses were minimal, really. If the press tells you that that 4 reactors have been destroyed, and there was an incident of 25,000 deaths, and if you read in parallel, this is not to say really that one has caused the other. Conversely, it has just occurred in parallel, and please be mindful of that. The summary of the 50 years of operation of NPPs, apart from Chernobyl, no one has lost their lives because of the radiation, because of the very operation of the power plant as such. Let us hope that our society here and local communities have will accept the NPPs as such, the project and its operation, to no less an extent than that case is in the other countries. Thank you very much, Professor. Have you got any questions to him? If yes, I think we can have a small Q&A session. If not, we are now starting presentations of the providers, of the vendors, in alphabetical order to avoid any doubts. Arriva, Mr. Jean-André Barbosa will kindly be asked to take the floor to deliver his presentation.
Dzień dobry Państwa i dziękuję za zaproszenie. Bardzo mi miło tu być z Wami. Dzisiaj będziemy...
For the invitation, it has been my pleasure to be with you. It has been a great pleasure to be with you. I'll speak about EPR reactor from the standpoint of safety. So we shall focus on those features which are very, very important for everyone. At the beginning, I should like to say that we must not forget that the nuclear reactor is the means of generation of electricity. And we want to have this electricity at competitive prices. So I would like to show you 2 slides. During these slides, I'll speak Polish, and then I'll change to English. So, as I said, we want to build the 3rd generation, and one of the reasons is the fact that we have taken the best things of German and French technology. As you know, we have here 3 convoy reactors from Germany and 2 reactors of N4 series in France. These are the technologies which exist. They are well checked, verified, and we know that the operational performance of these reactors has been accumulated over 60 years, and we know that EPR reactor is probably the best as far as the OPEX, operational experience. Do you know why? Well, because of the fact that the fuel cost is very low, management cost is very low, the outages are very infrequent and short. And so this gives us very attractive prices of electric energy. We approach now this chapter of reactor safety. And I'll speak about it more in the second part of the speech. However, we must always remember that our aim is to get electricity. Safety is something necessary, inherently necessary. And we shall see what features of our EPR reactor will ensure the safety of the reactor and of the population. Well, I could take a catalog of EPRs and give you system by system my comments, what is good, what are the active, what are the passive systems. This could be all described, but in spite of that, I think that the very important thing is the credibility of information which I'll show you. How can we believe in this information? Well, we can believe because of having the opinions of international organizations which are specialized in safety, and we shall see how EPR responds to their demands. For example, as we go here, we shall be able to check IAEA safety standards, project objectives, and the results of the comparison with Fukushima conclusions, Fukushima lessons. Now I shall turn to English, please. So we shall switch the languages, please. My time is limited, so I'll have to speak fast.
What is the safety approach of the EPR? The safety approach of the EPR is based on three major concepts, which is diversity, redundancy, and complementarity. What does it mean? It means that when you think about the whole building of the whole design, of the EPR, we have taken each of the components, we have taken each of the systems, we have designed all this, thinking about this, taking into account these three main elements. Why? Because the three have a big impact when it comes to possible incidents. As you know, the nuclear safety is mainly three basic functions. It's ensuring that you control the reactivity, ensuring that you can remove the heat that is in the fuel, and of course, avoiding that radioactivity goes outside. For this, you take mainly two approaches, which is, of course, the design is the defense in depth concept, which was described a little bit before by previous speaker. So if we go to the compliance with the IAEA safety standard SSR 2.1, what can we see from this? Is that the EPR meets without any problem this standard. I think I will, if you don't mind, I will be here because like this I can see you all at the same time, so I can show you things on the screen. So EPR is a generation 3 reactor. What does it mean? What does it mean, generation 3? It's among others, it is that the safety objective, and in particular the core damage frequency here is reduced by a factor of 10, which means that there where we were at 10-5, 10-6 per year, we are now almost at 10-7 if we see the new safety analysis. It is, of course, the defense in depth principles. It is the practical elimination of some situations. And why do you manage to get to a level of safety which is already much better than the ones of the previous generations? It's because you go into a very precise deterministic approach where you know that all the severe accidents or possibilities are foreseen in our analysis and are mitigated in our analysis. Deterministic. We're not talking here probabilistic, deterministic. It is, we envisage this scenario, what happens, what can we do, and what would be the reply, how would it behave? And this manages, leads us to a result which is extremely performant in terms of safety. The enhanced defense in depth, as I mentioned, is providing an increased protection. So it is all the different 5 barriers that we have in order to ensure normal operation. If there is an incident, to control and mitigate this incident and to avoid like this by 5 different lines of defense thought in the design of the reactor gives us a very good and increased protection. So in terms of the In terms of the IEA standard, we totally comply with it. If you see, mainly I will still talk about the product, which is EPR. How do we have our safety ensured? Am I talking too quick for the translation? Yes, too quickly. Yeah? So, in terms of safety systems, the main principle you must keep from our reactor is mainly that we have 4 different trains of safety, of safeguard that allow us to have diversity, which allow us to have to ensure that we will always have one of these trains working by using the single cause failure principle, by using so it is the N+2 principle. You need 2 trains more than the one that has failed, plus the one that could be in preventive maintenance. Why do we manage to get so good operating performance? Is because we have included in the design the fact that one of the trains could be in preventive maintenance when another one is failing and the third one has a single cause failure. So that's why we have 4 trains. If we go now to the assessment by the EIA and the evaluation of the UK EPR design, it is clear from this from the IAA that we totally fulfill these requirements, and the EIA is, as you know, a very a top institution in terms of these requirements. So it's for us a very good guarantee and a way to show you that our EPR is in terms of safety perfectly compatible with the highest standards. Second set of standards that I would like to present are the WENRA's safety objectives for NPPs. So as you know, in WENRA we have 7 high-level safety objectives which were published in 2010. You can see them listed here. It goes from normal operation, abnormal events and prevention of accidents, to accidents without core melt, accidents with core melt, independence between all levels of defense in depth, safety and security interfaces, radiation protection, and leadership and management for safety. For all these, so you have an assessment, and the EPR, I can tell you already without too much suspense, that the reactor fully complies with WENRA's objectives for the new power reactors. If you want, I can give much more details going one by one on all these safety objectives. So this is, for instance, what we call the O1. We have O2 accidents without core melt, accidents with core melt. So you know that one of the characteristics of the EPR is to very well balance the active and passive safety systems, and in particular the core catcher is a passive system which ensures that even in case of a very severe damage or a very severe accidents with the melting of the core, you will not have any large release outside, and you are able to re-put the plant into, let's say, a control state. So in particular, so you all know about the spreading area with the passive valve, which will allow the water included in the reactor building to passively flow and cool down the core, the melted core, which would go then into this core catch. It's an example of an evolution in the EPR, an evolution that shows how safety is taken it's taken into account in all possible scenarios where there can be a severe accident, and how it really applies afterwards in reality when building this reactor. O4, independence between all levels of defense in depth. So for this I can give a good example as well, is that we have in the EPR foreseen 4 emergency diesel generations, and in case this, so located in 2 different buildings separated geographically to avoid that both buildings can be damaged. And not only do we have these 4 emergency diesel generators, but in case these would fail the 4, we have also the emergency diesels, which are these 2 SBOs, 1 on each of the buildings, so it makes 6. So it's just to show you to what level we have now ensured the level of safety and ensure that probabilistically and deterministically the risk for a severe accident is zero or extremely low. So safety and security interfaces. So in particular, the reactor building as well as two safeguard buildings plus the fuel building are covered by an let's say a shell which protects against external hazards such as the crash of an airplane, large commercial airplane. O6, radiation protection and waste management. So just to confirm what Professor Strupczewski was said, it is that in any case, even in case of a very severe accident, level of radiations outside the EPR are extremely low, which allow actually not to have any significant displacement of people even in the long term on distances very short and very close to the reactor. 07, and this we should not forget, it is the management for safety. It means safety is also a matter of culture, and you have to introduce the safety culture and manage the safety culture inside the plant. For this, I can say that as you know, Arriva and EDF as the major nuclear operator in the world would have a perfect track record in terms of safety. So we are fully committed, of course, to support the project in fulfilling its objective, and in particular, its objectives of safety. So, just as I think I'm almost going to the end of my presentation. So, just as a matter of a third point before my conclusion is what about post-Fukushima? What about Fukushima and what has been done since then? So, as you know, this time is the ENS reg that I am going to quote. So after the IEAI and WENRA is the ENS reg. And here is and we're talking about the complementary assessment. And on this side as well, it has been concluded at the level of the safety authorities that the safety objectives of the EPR are fulfilled. And that as a Generation 3 reactor, it offers already increased protection compared to previous generations. So, as a matter of conclusion, it is almost impossible to try to describe to you all the safety features of such a reactor in such a short period of time. I chyba znowu będę trochę mówić po polsku. To jest prawie niemożliwe Państwu przedstawić wszyscy możliwe
Nearly impossible to show you all the mechanisms which ensure safety in EPR reactor. However, what I wanted to indicate here is, first of all, that there are people who are highly specialized in these two largest international organizations who made their analysis, who analyzed these reactors and gave their judgment, either from IAEA or from WENRA or from safety authorities from every country. We have from them their judgment that as far as EPR is the reactor of the highest class of safety. And in conclusion, I would like to say that EPR is as I say, designed conformly to all highest standards of safety. And we do not speak about some design on paper. It is a reactor which is being built. And I believe that beside these 4 units which are being built, there will be 5th and 6th unit. And we hope that some further units will be built in Poland, and the feedback from the experience of their construction will be utilized in Poland to the good result, to your profit and to our satisfaction. To finish it, I'd like to show here the safety authorities which have already analyzed our design. This is not only the judgment, these are hard facts. You can see that EPR is well integrated, and it is a very solid basis of the 3rd generation of reactors in the world. Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any questions to our guest? Yes, please. You are most welcome. Miss,
Your
Pani
reactor
Ba-
is very much safety, but I have a question about cost of production of energy without the cost of credit. How is cost production 1 megawatt hour in a per reactor without credit, without pay of credit? And second question, what is proposed the EPR and Areva together to finance a Polish project? If you can help us to build finance safety this project. You listen about that before.
To widzę, że to są pytania, które dotyczą bardzo dużo bezpieczeństwa.
Znaczy powiem tak, że konferencja dotyczy bezpieczeństwa, ale
This conference concerns safety. These questions go beyond safety. As far as the price of megawatt hour is concerned, we cannot tell you today what the cost will be. This depends on many elements, many factors, and as I said, we are not able to tell it today. However, as far as the second question is concerned, not to the cost of energy production, but to the design, I can tell you that, as you know, we have so-called integrated bidding, which, as Mrs. Piszczek mentioned this morning, we shall choose not only the technology, but also strategic partner who will provide the technology, provide fuel, provide maintenance and finance, and help in financing. I think you are well aware that EDF is very much interested in this, and of course it has a very, very vast experience in all these areas. If EDF and Areva go together, and it will be the case, then we shall be able to provide answers to such questions and to provide a good offer to such integrated question. I cannot specify conditions today. It will be done at the proper time. But as far as the strategic partnership is concerned, we are ready for it. Thank you very much. Now, the head of Gmina. I had the pleasure to be in Flamanville. I think that not many people were inside the reactor. I was inside the reactor when it was in maintenance state. Also, you have been in Poland for several years. I have a question. You can see this preparation for the investment. You can see many improvisations, but during this maintenance, all procedures were maintained. Do you think when we have the nuclear power plant in Poland, can we manage, can we cope with it, follow all procedures? I have no doubts, because I know, as you have said, I have had the pleasure to be in Poland, and I had the pleasure to meet many people here in Poland, people who are involved with safety, nuclear safety in regulatory body, in authorities, in polytechnic schools. As you remember, in one of my last slides, we were speaking about safety culture, but I have no doubt about it. I know the high level of competence of Polish specialists who will deal with it later on. So I know that Poland is demanding as far as the regulatory body is concerned, and I have no doubts. Of course, in France we have 58 reactors, so safety culture is deeply ingrained in France, and the specialists of EDF represent a very high level of safety culture. Thank you very much. Now the inspector. May I speak Polish? Yes, sure. We speak about safety. Of course, you were speaking about the design safety. Now I'd like to learn something about Areva offer on the other aspect of safety, namely preparation of personnel for the nuclear power plant, so that it would be able to build the nuclear power plant and then to operate. Could you characterize this? Yes, I'm lucky here because my director for Poland is responsible in Areva for preparation of the offer for Poland and structuring of the offer for Poland. So I would like to give the mic to him. Probably he will be able to answer better.
Good afternoon. If I may, I will speak in English. If I understood the question correctly, your point was related to the training and the development of competencies within PGE, knowing that PGE will be, with a strategic partner, the future operator. So this is one key aspect, because the idea is not only to construct the power plant, we need after to operate the power plant during 60 years. So we have had discussion, and we will continue discussion between EDF, Areva, and PGE. We had, for example, a year ago, some important meetings with PGE where this topic of operation and maintenance was discussed. So our idea is to be on a long-term present for the 10 years construction and 60 years operation with PGE. EDF, as number one operator in the world, is committed to have training to PGE personnel, to pass on the operation and maintenance manuals to PGE, and to cooperate with PGE, the nuclear power plant, knowing that the clear target is step by step to increase the competencies of PGE, and at the end of the day, to have a 100% Polish nuclear operator capable of operating the nuclear power plant. This is one strategy that we have already performed in China, for example, where we started to be present in the years 70 and 80s, where EDF and Areva were really present, and we pass on our technologies and our operating know-how. And we see that right now the Chinese people are more and more capable of operating on their own nuclear power plant. So this is one key aspect, and this is clearly our target on the long term to develop the competencies of PGE so they can be a nuclear operator on their own.
Are there any questions more, please? Yes, the mic is here. You have showed us further 3 zones of limited operation, that is 800 meters and 3 kilometers. And my general question is, what were the arguments of German side against nuclear power plants in Poland? That is, what were the questions asked by German side to Polish program? I would like to know what are the statements of Germany against nuclear power. They have some arguments against nuclear power plants. What are these arguments? Could you comment this, please? And how much reality is behind these arguments? Or are your projects above their statements? I think it may be difficult to answer. I don't know all arguments of German government. I know they have taken their decision after Fukushima. I don't know if Mr. Barbosa will be able to evaluate German argumentation and whether EPR reactors can counterweight the German argumentation for shutting down the nuclear power plants. I think that as far as the statements of German government are concerned, it is a political question, and it is not up to Areva to discuss this and evaluate the German government's position. But you have asked about 800 and 3000 meter zones. So our task is 800 meters and 3 kilometers. Yes. Yes. 3,000 meters were mentioned by Mr. Strupczewski. In our case, it is 1 kilometer or 800 meter zone. We must speak to the microphone, please. What is the hazard in the distance of 800 meters? It is not a question of the direct hazard. It is a standard which exists. That is, the dose of radiation exists within, is established for the severe accident, and we should not exceed it. So we should not exceed it in the distance of 800 meters. Are there any questions? No? Then Mr. Iwański, please. He will speak in Polish.
Zrobię tego, żebyś odpoczął, co? Potem może będzie cięższe po
Po polsku
angielsku.
będzie mówił.
Wiem.
Go.
A jak nie, to idź go szturchnij. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like just to, well, taking the opportunity, it just happened that, well, I've set a couple of definitions in order, and this is what I basically prepared for you. General Electric has for more than 60 years now been producing, manufacturing, assembling nuclear reactors. In order to build such a thing, such a stuff, you have first to conceive it, right? So, well, conception phase was prior to that, of course. But actually, the year 1954 marked the construction of the first such reactor, Dresden 1. As you can see, not very much different from today's PWRs. So steam generator, there's no pressure stabilizer, just a separator item device. But the very basic thing about it is that boiling water reactors don't please figure out some water down there and steam or above there. It's water with bubbles of steam, if you like, but the coefficients are much higher than under one-phase, single-phase flow conditions, because there's an element of heat of steam generation. As GE, we've never been ambitious enough to be the #1 producer of anything, the major, the larger, but more than 80 reactors to our credit in our technologies. Using our technologies are in operation the world over. Considering the Polish neighborhood, there's one in Finland, a couple of them in Sweden, some in Germany, some in Switzerland, in France now, Spain, Italy, Netherlands, yeah. As you can see, there's 60 years or so of development of technology that was supposed to reach up to certain limits. We've asked ourselves a question: what is it that causes the best-in-class safety, security coefficients to come over, to become a reality? And Fukushima, unfortunately, you can say, gave us the answer: the passive safety systems. Through such passive safety systems, we eliminate the quantity, the number of possibilities of occurrence of breakdown failure. And boiling water reactors technology does affect the so-called negative response coefficient, reactivity coefficient while allowing for receiving heat under normal circulation conditions, so without the need of pumping. Loss of electricity charge does not cause a deep failure, as BWR can operate under fading charge for 2 weeks roughly without a need of any operator to intervene. 1 week, sorry. After 1 week, you have to refuel the water. So a cistern water and a pump is enough to make it operational over a couple of days at least to come. Steaming, conversation, and gravitation force are the forces necessary for such a type of reactor to operate, and we tend to make jokes that, you know, once the gravity force, the gravity stops operating in Earth, stops being the case here as a natural power, natural force, then it will only fail to operate. So here a steam is received by a heat exchanger, and then the circulation is closed up, then flows down to the reactor and backwards, and it goes on and on and on. But it's just 15% of the steam with regards to the weight share of it, weight proportion. So 15% of steam from the boiling reactor propels the turbine, 60 megawatts. 80% of the coolant still remains within the tank of the reactor. That's how it works. Safety and simplicity. Here you can see the difference between generation 2 and generation 3. Basically, as regards safety, so-called probability related to breakdown, possibly causing a damage to the road core. So E -5, E and -5 minus 7 minus 8 as regards the power. Mathematically, that's the orders of magnitude showing you in safety terms the generational progress between the reactors. Well, here is the gravity-based system. There are water volumes under normal conditions serving the purpose of cooling the containment by consuming some steam. But in general, it is calculated in the way that under the worst possible, the severest breakdown conditions, the core will always be there under the water, immersed in the water. Even though the road may break up, still inside water. Well, the catcher is a standard piece of equipment here. As regards the leveling of the safety containment, please pay attention to the fact that the spent fuel tank is underneath the ground, and its location is such that it's always covered by water. So, in situation, sorry, let me rephrase. A Fukushima-like situation is out of the point here. It's just impossible. Even though it might be on the same level as the ground is, it's still the most sensitive part of it under the water. There is one more thing that I would like to attract your attention to is the technology related to recycling of spent fuel and use of the radioactive waste, heavy metal waste, etc., to generate electricity using a 4th-generation reactor and using fast neutrons. That's a modular type of reactor. It's sodium cooled. It is a small device, really. It can be carried by truck, by lorry, and, well, in the operated and factory conditions, in a tank that is filled with liquid sodium. Well, anything like, you know, the tank getting unsealed or something like that, insignificant, well, in fact, impossible. Under normal circulation conditions, the cooling takes place from the air. So we have made one step forward with regards to safety, environment, so to speak, and safety conditions. The coefficient for this particular reactor is 10 power minus 12. SBWR is the best in class, and here you have 4 orders of magnitude further than that, more than that, all of a sudden. So that uses metallic fuel, which is generated based on waste, radioactive waste from power plants that produce electricity, basically. This is where it's obtained from. So the future of nuclear industry, according to their definition, is based on safety of reactors, the operational safety, the society accepting it as the technologies that is established, proven, and safe in the first place, and through its simplicity, it is very well, very nicely comprehensible, very nicely explainable. Well, I haven't mentioned it, no one has mentioned that, the fact that whatever the cost of such NPP, the major difference between NPP project and any other project, coal-fired or whatever, that earthwork, installation work, construction works, is up to 50% of the investment project value. It's really hard to carry away this 50% component financially abroad. Thank you very much indeed, Director. Thank you very much for your attention. Any questions to Mr. Iwański? Let me... Yeah. Director, my question is somewhat abstract, maybe, beyond the point, maybe. It usually happened that when it came to breakdowns, failures, human errors, the case, you know, human eye, Chernobyl, Fukushima, in a way, has been a human factor, yeah, based on what you've said here. Can you risk a kind of self-assessment, self-evaluation with all those passive systems in place? Is there any possibility for, you know, of failure to occur, given all the, let's say, given the SBWR level, or you can't think of anything to happen possibly in long years to come? I know it's a tricky question. It is a little bit tricky, but it's really relating to the control and protection system. It is there are protections in place. Of course, I've drawn your attention, I should think, to the fact that the technology in itself has within it a lot of self-control elements, really. So if there's someone willing to increase the power of such reactors, so figure out you're a driver and you would like to hit a tree against a tree, and due to the reactivity coefficient, which is based, simply put, on an equation between the neutrons being used for the purpose and those being absorbed in nuclear reactions. If
above 1 or lower than 1. Above 1, the power increases. Lower than 1, it decreases. So because more and more steam is generated, the moderator, that means water, is getting expanded, and then the lesser number of neutrons taking part in this reaction, thus the power of the reactor automatically gets diminished. And this is what I can tell you to somehow justify the technology and to excuse myself for it. Okay, so to put it. As to other protections, well, it's like the Rolls-Royce thing, the rains are there, always the case. Okay, so Mike again, please use it. Okay, more kind of economic question. You've said that some projects for constructing of such NPPs, boiling water operated and stuff. Some of these projects have been completed. I know that these systems are simpler. How about the cost side of it? And anything in specific added to what you said? Yes, straight ahead. The only third generation reactor that's been in operation for some time, for a couple of years at the moment, 8 BWR. 4 such reactors have been constructed in Japan. At one of the facilities, I should think, been withdrawn. In one of the sites, the construction was started and then withdrawn, and in Taiwan they are going rather soon to operate one such third generation reactor. And compared to former PWRs in general, it has appeared to be at least half the price, cost-wise, expenses-wise. Well, whether the investment as such, as a project, is going to be cheaper, really cheaper, it's now too early for me to answer. Okay, it would be a daydream of mine that heat for Warsaw, such a large city as Warsaw, with centralized heating system, district heating system, it would come from waste heat based on what is produced, was generated at an NPP. Have you got, as General Electric Hitachi, any experience with it, like co-production, co-generation, if that's the good word, for thermal energy, for heat, as translated into district heating to be used by city dwellers? Well, in global terms, the answer is yes, would be yes, but it's not my kind of backyard. It's not really my cup of tea at the moment. It's really hard to expect that in society that has, I don't know, 45% of the opponents and roughly 50 plus of those voting for. I'm not sure whether people can be enthusiastic here about having such a facility in place right outside of the city in order to cooperate with the central heating system within this city. Thank you very much indeed, Professor, for your presentation. Mr. Nikshulia of Westinghouse will now be kindly asked to take the floor.
Panie dyrektorze, a wskaźnik? Wskaźnik.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present the EP1000 design. And I will be concentrating on safety features because safety is important not only for...
One moment, please. Okay.
It's just introduction. It's important not only for general public and the environment. Safety is important to protect your investment, to protect your asset. Safety brings confidence to your potential investor. So I will give a very quick Westinghouse overview, just to give you a flavor about our company. We'll concentrate on the P1000 plant features. I will provide a short update on the P1000 plant construction around the world. So Westinghouse was founded in 1886 by George Westinghouse, and we were responsible for bringing first commercial nuclear power reactor in the US. Today, our business is only nuclear. We are owned by Toshiba from 2006, October 2006, when Toshiba bought Westinghouse from the UK government. So just for the information, nearly 50% of the nuclear power plants in operation worldwide are based on Westinghouse PWR technology. Our newest design is the P1000 pressurized water reactor, PWR, which features innovative passive safety systems and proven technologies based on Westinghouse 50+ years of experience. So again, about Westinghouse, 4 major business units, engineering, equipment, and major projects, nuclear power plants. This is business unit where I'm working, and nuclear fuel, automation, and field services. Automation, that includes INC systems for the current plants and for AP1000. This is a footprint of Westinghouse around the world. We have about 60+ sites worldwide. And in Europe, we have about more than 4,000 people based permanently in Europe. So let's talk about the AP1000 plant features. So we always have some confusion, and when we're trying to determine, what does it mean, generation 3, generation 2, generation 3+. So some vendors, they decided to adopt the evolutionary design to increase the safety of their plants. This is our classification of our Westinghouse classification of the generation 3+ compared to other plants. So the evolutionary design is just an update of a current 3 and 4 loop design, extensive safety grade support systems. You still need AC power for safety action and safety diesel generators. They're all safety related. You rely on the operator action, and your ultimate heatsink is still heat exchanger. So the revolutionary design is what our understanding is. It's first of all, it's less concrete and steel per megawatt, simpler design, less equipment, fewer seismic wound structures, shorter construction schedules, less maintenance and operational costs, and much less reliance on operator. Independent of offsite power to operate safety systems, ultimate heatsink is atmosphere. So what does it mean? You can't lose ultimate heatsink. So this is the layout of the P1000 PWR plant. So it's 1100 megawatt class reactor. But from now, you must be prepared to shift your paradigms. So we started with a clean sheet of paper and put some basic requirements for the new plant. So we should shut it down, we should keep it cool, we should keep it safe, and we should make it simple. So on the AP1000 plant PWR layout, you see some traditional diesel generators, for example, and you might ask, why you still need, we can come back to this later. These diesel generators are not safety related. It makes big difference. So passive safety systems, they replace mechanical and electrical systems, and that results in less safety-related material and equipment. So we also developed modular design for the AP1000 PWR plant, which provides faster, predictable construction schedule. We reduced operation and maintenance costs versus other plants, and we utilized our proven technology. So let's talk about safety. So passive safety related systems. So what does it mean? So use passive process only, no active pumps or diesels, one-time alignment of valves, no support system required after actuation of the passive safety systems. Greatly reduces dependence on operator actions. On the top of this, on the AP1000 plant, you can see active defense and depth related systems, which you normally see on the current plants. So you can see diesel generators, you can see safety trains, separated safety trains. The role of the system is to provide reliable support during normal operation. So it's redundant equipment powered by on-site diesels. So the role of the system is to minimize challenges to passive safety systems. However, the major difference from the other plants is the systems that are not necessary to mitigate design-based accidents. The systems that are not quoted in the safety analysis report. So what we are doing in case of severe accident scenario, like Comel. So these are mitigated by in-vessel retention of the melted fuel. We'll come back to this later. We don't have co-catcher. What does it mean, simplification of design? So it means if you compare a P1000 plant with other plants, so you have 50% fewer valves, 35% fewer safety grade pumps, 80% less pipes, 45% less seismic building volume, and 85% less cables. So it helps us to localize the supply chain because the greater percentage of equipment is not safety grade, not nuclear grade. On this part of the slide, you can see the footprint of the Generation 2 plant. This is actually on the left is Sizewell B, the last Generation 2 plant built by Westinghouse in England. And dark blue area denotes the safety-related footprint, seismic category 1. And on the right, you can see the P1000 footprint, and the dark green area denotes safety-related seismic 1 category buildings. On this, it just gives you the ideas. For Sizewell B, the last built Generation 2 plant, so the amount of concrete and rebar which required for Sizewell B, this is the amount of concrete and rebar required for a Kyoto plant, and this is what we have for the P1000. So the AP1000, again, let's compare the footprint, the safety-related footprint of the AP1000 plant with EPR plant. So basically, the dark blue area denotes safety-related footprint for EPR, and the light red is the total footprint. You still have some diesel generators for the AP1000, however, they're not safety-related. So the AP1000 has significantly less safety-related area, equipment, and components, and the AP1000 construction schedule is not for the first of a kind. About 48 months from the first nuclear concrete to substantial completion and testing. So this is how the safety systems, passive safety systems of the AP1000 operate. So on the left, this is the typical example of the standard PWR plant. And on the right is a P1000 plant. You can see most of the safety-related safety systems, they are located inside the containment and protected by the shield building as well. I won't spend much time because it's very technical on this slide. This is just gives you the idea of the passive core cooling system, which completely eliminates the need for the EC power. Instead, I will show you some animation. So what happens if we have an accident? A loss of coolant accident. So if we have a break in the primary system, the pressurizer responds to a break in the system. Then pressurizer and or level drop actuates COMAC up tanks. Cold leg heats up, drives cold, make up tanks injection water, and then steam. A residual heat removal system activates. This is the in-containment reactive refueling water storage tank. Drop in COMAC up tanks water level signals to after depressurization to start. We have 3 stages. So you have actuation of the first valve and second. Accumulator ejects at 700 pCIG, like in a normal plant. Then depressurization stage 4 activates when COMAC up tanks drops level to 20%. In containment refueling water storage tank flow starts. Some return from containment sump, water returns, and then the final stage when the system, the channel condensation from the containment wall starts, the system puts itself in the safe conditions. Recirculation for long-term cooling achieved. So passive containment cooling system. So the P1000 passive cooling system cools outer surface of steel containment shell using natural circulation of air and water evaporation. The P1000 ultimate heatsink is the atmosphere. Let's see how it works again. So it's better to see it than to explain. So you have outside air coming through the air intakes. You have an accident which releases mass and energy into the containment. Natural circulation of air outside containment cools the steel containment. You have internal condensation and natural recirculation. Water drains by gravity to enhance cooling with evaporation. Water supply from passive containment auxiliary water storage tank on the top of the containment building is enough for 72 hours of cooling. We have all safety-related great connections to provide alternative water inventory. Severe accident address. So in-vessel retention, no co-catcher. So external reactor vessel cooling provides reliable means of cooling of damaged core. So it prevents vessel failure. High pressure core melt eliminates by automatic depressurization system. Hydrogen detonation prevented by igniters and passive recombiners as other plants. Steam explosions. In vessel, no reactor vessel failure. Ex vessel eliminated by internal vessel retention system. Concrete interaction eliminated by in vessel retainment system. So ex vessel phenomena risk still significant for current plants. Our system prevents ex vessel phenomena. Simple strategy for operator: provide water. Core melt doesn't attack containment barrier. Let's see how it works. So we have two steam vents, reactor vessel cavity. We have primary system pipe and then shield wall and insulation. We have loop compartments. We still have core intact. In the event of the accident, if the water is lost from the reactor coolant system and the core overheats and then melts, when core reaches exit temperature, the in-containment refueling water storage tanks drains into the containment. Flow water steam past reactor vessel and removes heat and prevents reactor vessel failure. So key factors in new nuclear plant success: it's simplicity in design, it's simplicity in safety, simplicity in construction, simplicity in procurement, simplicity in operation and maintenance. We can all achieve all of that with passing safety systems. Let's talk about modular design. Modular construction. We build big modules outside the main construction site. So just to give you the idea about the models, we have about 122 structural models, about 154 mechanical equipment, technical equipment, total about 342 models built off-site. Advantages: reduce construction schedule, increase productivity and quality control at the model fabrication facility, because people that are working in the controlled environment, they're not working, they're not exposed to rain and cold and weather like we have probably today. Reduce field work and on-site manpower during construction. Standardization reduces cost of multiple plant orders. We have some negative impact, but we have more advantages. Of course, it increases engineering for modules, of course. Increase temporary support structures, lifting and rigging requirements. Early material requirements. We need to order all materials in advance, and probably that's to the transportational costs. So regulatory certainty, which is important. So we have the EU certificate from May 2007. AP1000 plant amended design approved by NRC in December 2011. We have interim design approval from UK regulator from December 2011. We will resume the licensing in the UK very shortly. China licensing activities on track with final safety analysis report submitted to the customer 2012. COL approved combined construction and operational licenses approved for Vogel 3 and 4 site, and VC Summer 2 and 3. So let's talk very briefly about localization. So we don't manufacture equipment ourselves with very short, exception. So we buy where we build. We use available local regional supplies consistent with the fleet build out of schedule. Develop upgrade documentation, training, and skills needed in partnership with the local regulator and the government. We expand our capability consistent with market growth. Our progress in China is a result of buy where we build approach. So what kind of localization we can achieve? It depends on the country. It depends on the supplier. Because you have to prove that you can qualify, and as soon as you're qualified, you can be listed as the Western Gulf supplier, not only for the specific country, for our global fleet. So we are talking about probably 60-70%. We can achieve 60-70% localization. Very safety functions required to mitigate, Fukushima event, like, station blackout. You have to provide co-cooling, inventory, and reactivity control. You have to achieve, good containment cooling and ultimate heat sink, spend fuel pool cooling, all achieved for EP1000. We have no reliance on NC power. For station blackout, the EP1000 plant meets about, aggressive 72 hours coping time. For active plants, as well, station blackout time, coping time period is about 8 hours or less. So this is a code damage frequency. This is current NRC requirements, and yellow it's current plant, utility requirement, and this is a value for the EP1000. So it's in line with other designs, so it's pretty safe. However, the contribution of the station blackout, the loss of power, to the core damage frequency for the EP1000 is only 0.4%. For the existing plant, it's about 25%. That just gives you the idea how good the safety system is. So just to summarize this bit, EP1000 PWR self-actuates for station blackouts. The all safety system will automatically achieve fail-safe conditions without need for operator to action or any AC or DC power. The EP1000 PWR self-sustained. PWR passive approach to safety de-emphasizes the importance of AC power and cooling supply. And the EP1000 PWR self-contained system structures and components critical to placing the reactor in a safe shutdown condition are protected with the steel containment vessel and surrounded by substantial steel concrete shield building. And just to give you, the conclusion, some nice pictures of the AP1000 plant global project delivery. We have 4 units in China and 4 units in the United States. This picture just showing the first concrete in March 2009 for Sunman 1. And this is unit 2, steam generator refueling canal model. We are talking about modular construction. You see how big the model is. Reactor vessel and project summary in China. I will show you the time-lapse slide. So this is from 2009 to 2013. It will show you the progress of the construction and what I explain. It's slightly outdated already. This is Sunman 1, which is first of a kind of EP1000 in province Haiyang in China. It's not the artist impression. It's not Photoshop. It's And why I said it was outdated? Because now, last week, we closed the top of the containment shell building. So the plant looks now exactly the same like it should be looking. Of course, we need to do a lot of engineering work inside the plant, but from the outside, it looks complete. We have some progress in the United States, and these pictures just show what we achieved in the US. And my final message is that I think by the time when Poland will launch, start construction of Polish nuclear facility, nuclear Polish plant, first plant, I believe we will have 6 operational units of AP1000 as a reference, 4 in China and 2 in the US. We're also making good progress in the UK, I think. And we're in exclusive talks with Bulgaria as well. Thank you very much. Sorry, I was trying to keep it very short. I could talk for ages.
Okay. Thank you very much. Dziękuję bardzo. Czy Państwo macie pytania do
Do you
naszego
have any
gościa?
questions to Mr. Szuliak, please? I have a question. Since you said that the construction of this nuclear power plant can be such that it is made up of modules, my question consists in the following. When we have finished the operation of this nuclear power plant, can we decommission it and remove it in order to use the terrain and infrastructure and put in another nuclear power plant using the existing infrastructure? It means, I mean, the economic effects, but is it worthwhile?
The answer to your question is to reuse the models, probably not, because it will be a very expensive exercise. Not because the models will fail, because you will have to prove it to your regulator that these models they are still can be used at other plants. It will be a very expensive exercise, trust me. You know, the regulator will not like it. But you can reuse the model fabrication facility to build models for other units. Yeah, of course. But not the models themselves. No, not the models.
Ale czy Pan pytał o wykorzystanie terenu raczej? Tak.
But the question concerned the use of terrain mostly, not only modules. Can we use the site itself?
Oh yeah, you mean reuse site? Yes, of course, yeah, because we have less components. You know, we believe that overall decommission cost will be much lower compared to other plants. So yeah, I mean, shouldn't be a problem. You mean greenfield? Yeah.
Czy jeszcze jakieś pytania są do naszego gościa?
Yes.
Experiences Westinghouse to integrated production heat and electricity in reactors and using heating in cities, for example in China or USA. Do you have this kind of?
I understand your question. It was a similar question you asked to my colleague before, right? So basically, the answer is we've not had these requirements for the existing customers. However, we have options in our design. You have to put some requirements. You have to ask us, you know, put some, technical specifications, what output, what, and then we can provide you a good answer. But technically, it's possible, I would say. Can't give you more details.
Czy jeszcze są jakieś pytania? Jeśli nie, to jeszcze...
Professor Strupczewski would like to assume a position against the first questions with regards to distances. Thank you very much for this opportunity for me to explain. In Poland, as from 2004, the year 2004, there's been rules, principles in place provided by the Council of Ministers and in particular the Ministry of Health with regards to the doses of radiation implying emergency actions. That's a very general term. Iodine pills is one of those emergency actions you can take, or staying temporarily at your own home, covering, shielding, the windows with curtains or whatever, or in the worst case scenario, evacuation. So, for a variety of doses of radiation, various means, various protections measures rather are provided for. 10 millisievert is the lowest limit ever. Below it, you are not supposed to do anything. However, if within, let's say, in the course of 70 years, the dose being received, generated in the street is over 10 millisieverts, then we can think of taking some action. These principles were enacted 10 years ago when nothing was yet decided as to NPPs for Poland. That's established in accordance with the Vienna-based agency regulations, other international regulations. Now, when I talk to you about 800 meters of a distance, or 3,000 meters distance, in this context, in excess of 800 meters, the doses will be small enough, even though we may have a case of severest EPR reactor-based NPP, that no one should be evacuated, or no emergency action should be taken. All hide in your homes. Up within this zone, the safety zone, okay, of 800, we are free of taking any such action. Within the 3 kilometers, you don't have to take any medium-term actions, like, for instance, distributing iodine pills. If someone swallows up such pills, it's not a great burden, right? But between 800 meters and 3,000 meters, such a situation can statistically occur once a million years of operation, constant operation of such reactor. These are the European utility requirements with regards to new NPPs, not the old ones. The new ones, obviously including those to be seen here in Poland, are supposed to fulfill it. Our surveillance office may not be okay with, 800 meters, 1,000 meters, they can assume, of 1,200 meters. But for EPR reactor, the principle is 800, and this has been the case. This has been fulfilled, as confirmed by the Chinese, Finnish, US surveillance offices. In this country, definitely we confirmed as well. As to the other types of reactors, I am not quite sure right now, but most probably the suppliers will provide very similar information. I should hope that you yourself and Mr. Jurkowski will stay available for you to discuss details unofficially outside of this room here, outside of the main course of our debate.